the experience of coming down from a good LSD trip or a good MDMA trip or a good mushroom trip or mescaline, right, is very much as you read in someone like Aldous Huxley. The thing you are losing your purchase on something that was more true, right? It's not just different. There are levels of encumbrance that are recongealing around your mind and separating you from a clarity of vision that you before that experience you didn't know was possible.
You're a very persuasive advocate, Sam.
This
I mean,
is
I did try transcendental meditation once. Did
right.
absolutely nothing for me at all.
That's not the one I would have recommended to
I'm
you,
sure.
though.
I'm sure, right? I mean, they gave me a mantra,
Right.
and at the same time as a lot of gobbledygook in Sanskrit, I think.
Right.
And I tried this mantra, and so I shut my eyes and I said the mantra to myself, and all that happened was I heard myself saying the mantra to myself,
Right.
and that was it.
Right.
And
Okay. So I didn't know that I was going to do this, but would you be willing to meditate with me for 5 minutes just
okay,
to explore this? Because there are many misunderstandings about meditation, and some of them are born of the fact that people get recommended things like TM, and that presents several impediments, especially to a skeptic like yourself. First, you're given a mantra, which is a Sanskrit phrase, it's an explicit export from Hinduism, and you're told some gobbledygook about the significance of this phrase. And the first question for you as a skeptic is, what's the significance of the Sanskrit and why adopt this in the first place? And what's the utility of just repeating this thing over and over again? And it's not to say that mantra meditation can't work for something, but there's a starting point that should strike you, I think will strike you as totally empirical and requires no faith placing in anything. The only faith really is the faith of a scientific hypothesis, which is if there's something that's interesting to discover about the nature of your mind in this moment from the first person side, paying closer attention would be an appropriate method to discovering that thing. So now I would just ask you to close your eyes and just listen to the sounds in the room. And you can also feel your body resting in space. Just feel the weight of your back against the chair and of your hands resting on your legs. And notice that consciousness is simply this condition in which everything is appearing. So, again, sounds and sensations in the body, and also thoughts themselves and emotions and your background mood, or whether you feel restless or tired or happy. Anything you can notice is an appearance in this same condition of conscious awareness. And take your sensation of having a body, for instance. See if you can pay close enough attention to the raw sensations themselves such that you relinquish the shape of your body. So you might notice this with your hands. You feel pressure and tingling and temperature. And if you feel these raw sensations closely enough, you can actually relinquish the shape of your hands. You don't feel fingers and palm. You just feel a far more punctate and changing cloud of sensations. And this is true of your legs and your shoulders. And though your eyes are closed, I would actually remind you that you still have a visual field. You can gaze into the darkness of your closed eyes and notice that it's not quite dark, right? There's an iridescence there. There are even some scintillating lights, very likely. And as a field of view, it is actually undefined. It is a kind of sky like openness that you can just gaze into. And every time you notice that your mind is lost in thought, you might notice thoughts competing for your attention here. Just see if you can notice the thought itself unravel and come back to raw sensations in the body or changes in your visual field or sounds. And if you notice anything unpleasant, you might notice aches or pains in your body. See if you can notice just that valence of unpleasantness and just let that be as it is. There are pleasant things, there are unpleasant things. And consciousness itself is not really changed. Consciousness is merely the space in which all of these things are appearing. So now, normally, I wouldn't be talking quite this much and I wouldn't be giving you so much information, but I just want to give you the lay of the land here. So, this is a more discursive tour of your mind. So, I want you to notice that as you pay attention to sounds and sensations, you very likely feel that you are the one who's attending, right? You are a locus of attention, very likely in your head, that can pay attention to the objects of consciousness in a strategic way, right? So I can say, I want you to feel the sensations in your hands now. And as you do that, and you pay very close attention to whatever's there, pressure, tingling, you might feel like you're up above your hands, you're in your head, aiming attention down at the sensations. That's actually a false position. That is an illusion. And when you hear that meditation culminates in something like self-transcendence or the revelation that the ego is an illusion, this is where that discovery is made. There's the sense of subject-object dualism, which you can cut through. And you can cut through it in one of two ways. You can pay such close attention to the objects of consciousness. So, again, like the feeling in your hands or a sound, that when you notice the next appearance in consciousness, the next sound, the next sensation, there can be for that moment just the noticing. There can be just the pressure or just the sound impinging on consciousness. And you lose the feeling of there being a one who knows it. There's just a unity of consciousness and its object. And that's an experience that you can have if you just pay close enough attention to sensations and sounds or even thoughts. But you can also look for this sense of self directly. You can look for the sense of that there's a subject in the head. And that can seem somewhat paradoxical, but you can do it and actually fail to find it in a way that is conclusive, so that then consciousness really seems to be without a subject in the head. There is no homunculus up there aiming attention at things. And so I just kind of point you to where that discovery would be had. So you might notice that you feel like you're, as a subject, as a locus of consciousness, in your head right now. And so that means you're behind your face. So I'd ask you to feel the sensations of your face right now. Feel whatever it is in consciousness that tells you that you even have a face. Again, feelings of pressure or tightness or temperature. And you might also feel that you have a back of your head, right? How is it that you know that there's a back to your head? So you can feel that closely. And you might alternate again to the feeling of your face. And as you do that, I would point out that from the point of view of consciousness, you are not behind your face and you're not in front of the back of your head, right? Both of these things are merely appearing in consciousness. The only evidence of having a face or having a head are sensations now appearing in consciousness. This doesn't mean that consciousness isn't a product of your brain. Again, I'm talking purely from the first person side. These are not metaphysical claims about consciousness subsuming the entire universe. But I'm saying, from the point of view of consciousness, empirically, from the experience side of what it's like to be you, anything you can notice, including the feeling of having a head, is simply appearing in consciousness in this moment. So consciousness is a prior condition. And if you keep dropping back into what that feels like, just this open space in which everything is appearing, you can notice that it doesn't feel like a self. It doesn't feel like I. It doesn't feel like me. It's simply this open and unstructured space in which the next thought, the next emotion, the next intention, the next sound will appear all on its own. And again, as you fall back into this more and more, you can begin to notice that the concept of free will doesn't make any sense because, again, the next thought simply appears. From the point of view of consciousness, there's not a direct authorship of any of this. If you have free will, it should extend to many things in this space, right? So let's look for it. Notice the next sound you hear. Notice that it just appears, and you can't decide whether or not to hear it, right? You have exactly zero freedom here. You will either hear it or you won't. You won't be able to account for when you do hear the traffic and when you forget about it. You can't hold on to one of these sounds for a moment longer than it appears. And so it is with the next thought, right? You might have noticed various thoughts appear, right? You might think, well, how long is this going to go on for? Surely this is more than 5 minutes. Sam is banging on about this. That too just appears in consciousness. There's no place the conscious witness was standing to author that thought. Now you can open your eyes. What I was showing you there is a kind of awareness that's just called mindfulness, right? Which is just paying very close attention to the flow of experience. And I have done retreats where all you do for 18 hours a day is that. You're in silence for 24 hours a day, and you're spending every waking moment trying to pay closer and closer attention to the flow of conscious experience. And I've met people who have spent 20 years like that in silence on retreat. And I've spent, in my 20s, I spent close to 2 years like that, in increments of, 1 month and
couldn't
3 months.
stand it. I couldn't stand it.
Yeah. So now I want to hear about your experience. What were you experiencing here that
Well,
suggested that you
I
couldn't
was
stand it?
listening to your words, and I was keeping my eyes shut, and I was doing everything you said. I couldn't see the point of it.
What is the experience of not seeing the point of it? You're thinking, right? You're
Yeah.
in each of those moments, you're thinking and you're not noticing that you're thinking. So you'll think, what's the point of this?
Well, I was thinking. I was aware that I was thinking. I was aware of my thoughts. I was aware that the thoughts came into my head. I suppose I felt that. No, I mean, I wasn't. I wasn't bored. I wasn't. But I would be for 24 hours. And 5 minutes would be about my limit, I think.
All right. Well, you might need a microdose or even a
Yes.
macrodose.